Hyperliquid's fee structures are so low that it allows for a partner like Phantom to build on top of it. And still, like, the fees look very competitive even with Phantom's take when compared to like centralized exchanges and AMM dexes and everything else out there that exists. And so this, I think, was really a killer announcement and just makes me extremely bullish for what Hyperliquid can achieve. I think this has been like the builder code thesis congealed into like almost like the ultimate form right out of the gates. Like, we'll have to see what adoption is like on Phantom, but yeah, like this is what everyone's been talking about, except I don't think anyone was ready for this type of an announcement to come this fast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Shoot the Shit Pod number 9. I'm your host, Matthew Day, and joined by the Enterprise team. We got a full house here with Kenji, Chris, Andrew, Sonny, and Dylan. Today is July 14th. It's around 2:14 p.m., about an hour after the PUMP ICO. But we have a loaded agenda where we're going to talk about PUMP, a lot about PUMP, and then we're going to talk about some Bitcoin all-time high, some Hyperliquid performance around the PUMP Fund, ICO, TGE, and then also a little treasury vehicle coming out with some hype accumulation. And we're going to talk some Sol ETH performance. And in the show with the Deep End Corner, talk about some H&T performance. But to load it up and talk a little bit macro, S&P still around all-time highs, gold fluttering with all-time highs, a little lower than last episode. But if we go over to crypto, Bitcoin, since the month to date, up 13%, ETH up 25%, Sol up 11%, and Hype up 29%. We can start with PUMP, unless you guys want to talk with Bitcoin hitting 120, a little under right now as we speak. But where do you guys want to go? Do you guys want to speak a little Bitcoin, a little macro, or just go straight into PUMP?
I feel like our tradition is usually talking about Bitcoin first, right?
Yep.
All right, take it away, Andrew.
Macro expert Andrew.
Out of any takes right now. It's like last time we talked, I think one of the last things I said was, despite normal summer seasonality being pretty choppy and boring and people leaving their desks, like it seemed like a lot of factors were lining up, vol getting compressed, people stopped focusing on tariffs, like even post this weekend and post end of last week. I think Trump was on a tirade just slamming like 30-50% tariffs on random countries. Markets like clearly reading through all of that. Risk assets don't care anymore. They're either, pricing in eventually that he's going to tone things down, or Besson will tone things down, or that the upcoming fiscal stimulus is just going to override all of that possible volatility. And I think there's growing consensus around just dollar debasement in general, like not just from crypto native people, but kind of in TradFi as well. And I think that's all kind of contributing to new all-time highs. And let's see what else. Did you guys see that post by Udi recently? His like Bitcoin mega bull tard shill piece. There was one he was basically saying, like, he was making a comparison to Doge in like 2019 and 2020 from the sense that this like 110 level, we just had a massive changing of supply from whales that have held BTC since like a decade ago. And I think there was a good chunk of time there where people were wondering, like, okay, these BTC treasury companies are buying 9 figures worth, and then plus Sailor, there's billions of dollars worth. The ETFs, I think, recently hit 90 billion in AUM, which is like basically the most successful ETF launch of all time. And they're just hoovering up like supply constantly. But we were kind of pinned like sub 110. And I think there was like this massive changing of hands and like supply there. And his main point was that once that happens, from a psychological perspective, and from people who bought IBIT at $70, like this idea of BTC being expensive at $110,000, it kind of vanishes. And you have this new cohort who've just like owned BTC for the first time. Owning IBIT in your brokerage at $70, you can come up with all these new arbitrary price targets. Like even though obviously the FDV math like will start to get silly. But from a retail perspective, and say from a financial advisor perspective, you just put this asset in your client's portfolio at a 2 to 5% allocation, probably maybe not even that much. things can start to get silly. Like now that this entire holder base has kind of turned over a decade, which I agree with. Like maybe a lot of the crypto native people still to this day might be underestimating how far this asset can go. Now that it's really super easily accessible to an even wider and more well funded cohort. So yeah, everything looks good. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other bull takes.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. I think like the move on Thursday to like 116, 117 was like so one of the craziest days for Bitcoin I've seen in recent memory. Like we were all in the office just hooting and tolerant. And yeah, I think what you mentioned, like the combination of equities indices pushing all time highs, like low vol, this fiscal stimulus bill that just got signed. And then all of the people who had shorts at like the prior all-time high just getting liquidated all at once was pretty wild to see happen in real time. And during the weekend, like I think that 116 move could be pretty easily explained. Like if you want to just be like, oh, a bunch of shorts got liquidated, like there was a cascade, like price pushed up, but then seeing the move to like 120 plus, like during the weekend was like even more surprising. And yeah, it just feels like a culmination of a lot of things that like us crypto natives have been talking about, seemingly like starting to stick with a bunch of people who used to kind of completely disregard the asset class. Just having all types of interest from like even friends and coworkers that I've had in the past, like reach out and ask about Bitcoin and tokenization and etc. I think like it kind of feels like this moment is realer than a lot of like the fake out, is this the time for Bitcoin type moves that we've had in the past? And so I'm pretty bullish as well. I think this was pretty remarkable.
And maybe one differentiator this time around versus the first 100K break. I think there's a lot of leverage buildup like into the Trump top, but mostly like in altcoins, and I don't think we had the same sort of systemic leverage buildup as when we had like 3AC doing all this like unsecured lending. To me, I think the parallel here is we might be starting to see that with these BTC treasury companies. Like there's an aspect of this like building embedded leverage through these public companies that are raising through convertible bonds or other methods. So that might be underestimated by the market. Now that we've like cleared through all of this supply and you have these people levering up to bid, I think upside targets could be. I think everyone, like every native, could be underselling what these like right tail outcomes based on that.
Yeah, it feels like early mania. I mean, a lot of the typical signals we would probably look at as like the signs of a Pico top slash like bubble bursting moment for crypto just aren't there yet. I don't know how anyone could really say that. Systemic leverage, the fact that most altcoins are still pretty depressed, the fact that like we haven't really seen any traditional outlets pick up on this space as much as they had in like prior moments. Yeah, it feels like if there is like a some sort of mania coming here, that this is still pretty early and we're kind of starting to see the foundations of that form now, which I guess if you're in the market is short term slash midterm bullish, hopefully. So yeah, I don't think there's anything dangerous about what we've seen so far, like the past month or so.
Yeah, I don't like the treasury company stuff. Like I think in the end that will probably, I don't know how, but will probably come to bite us somehow. But you have to factor it in and how high things can go, obviously. And I was gonna add something and it completely slipped my mind now.
I guess like pivoting over to alts though. This was like one of the few weeks that I can think of where literally almost every alt on my watch list was like up double digits. Everything from like Farcoin to Sui to Bonk to like Ethereum even. Like I think just across the board, it seems like a lot of risk on from capital that was probably sidelined. Uh, so yeah, don't know if you guys have any takes about that. I'm just curious what people think about speculating on altcoins right now. Hearing some rumors of like Ethereum potentially having a moment versus like the broader landscape. Obviously, Pump launching today, TGEing today, like at a very interesting time. So if this is like analogous to 2020, which I know we've talked about, Andrew, like wondering what this means for altcoins going forward.
Before we jump into altcoins, do you guys think this White House crypto week has any big tailwinds? I think like Genius Act, like rumored, maybe actually get signed. Is that just another positive headwind that you guys aren't really looking into too much, or is there anything real that might come out of crypto week that you guys have seen?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the market's reacted to like White House announcements
I'd say on
that
average
are crypto
they've
specific.
been pretty underwhelming for the most part. Like too much attention versus actual output.
I I think just given what happened at the beginning of the year with the tariff onslaught, with all the Bitcoin strategic reserve, the digital asset stockpile, I think the markets are like fully numb to White House announcements. Like there's not much more that can be done that can really meaningfully move markets, in my opinion. And things are going to be at a far lesser scale than we saw at the beginning of the year. So I don't really see why markets would react significantly, favorably because of the DC week. Like I think it's just the gradual adoption of tokenization in Wall Street and stable coins and crypto just continuing, but I don't think it's going to serve as a large catalyst. And I don't even think bad news would do much to the markets. I think markets are just numb to the White House for now unless we get something really, really large, but I just don't think the political will is there. I think the administration's focused on so many other things that like I doubt we'll see any huge news this quarter at least.
Yep. No, and I agree with that, and I think that's ultimately a good thing as we become less stick to White House announcements and everything. Let's get to the big announcement of the week. Everything we've been wanting to talk about is the Pump ICO finally happened on Saturday, and it was a big one. Apparently raised 500 million on the public. Not sure. There's like a ton of different rumors on the private side. Heard 100 million, 200 million, all the way up to $600-700 million. So if any of you guys have like accurate data, but it went 12 minutes, and I heard like some people couldn't even get in after the first minute. About 24,000 wallets were KYC'd before. Only 42% were able to go in, and then we saw TGE go on today. And so big news. There's a ton of different directions we can go with this. We could talk about Hyperliquid kind of stealing the show with releasing the pre-TGE perp option, which did a ton of volume in day one. Also coincided with the Phantom launch, deciding to use Hyperliquid builder codes. We could also go into some worries in price performance that's going on right now with the whole meme coin wars. I know, Sonny, you released some little analyst notes and some looking into that. As for everyone that isn't aware, Let's Bonk has stolen market share from Pump Fund over the last week. Since July 4th, really has dominated the market. And some speculation, they got some creators coming over, maybe are incentivizing some of these like huge, just like a ton of algorithmic token creators. But we can kind of take it anywhere you guys want with just Pump kind of dominating mind share over the last week and a half, and probably will continue as we go into the week.
Yeah, I guess to provide some context on the ICO. So initially the rumor mill was 25% allocated to the ICO, with a mix of that being private and public. I think the initial rumor was that the public side of the ICO was going to get a larger allocation than the private side. That ended up changing. So it ultimately I think was 33% allocated to the ICO, 33% of Pump's total supply, with 18% going private and 15% going to public investors in the ICO. And obviously, some of those private investors could have participated or upped their exposure in the public sale as well. But yeah, I think all roads has pointed to demand being strong for the ICO. On the private side, I think upping the allocation number than what was initially floated is a sign that it was probably oversubscribed. People probably couldn't get their full allocations. The Pump team made an executive call there to like increase the allocation to private investors before releasing it to public investors. And then like KYC public investors on Saturday had like 15 minutes maybe to get into the actual public pre-sale, with most of that happening on chain on like Pump Funds, like on chain KYC trading venue. Lots of stories about people not getting filled on Bybit and a number of these different centralized exchanges. So very interesting to see that how that plays into the TGE. And then I think like seamlessly crossing over from the ICO was Hyperliquid doing over, I think 700 million in volumes. I think at this point, so there was 500 million from the first day, roughly like 250, 300 million. The second day kind of slowed down a bit and then picked back up into the actual TGE. So I'd say that Hyperliquid at this point has probably done close to $1 billion on pre-market perps for Pump. The OI at one point was like 3x, 4x that of the Binance pre-market. And so a very, very liquid pre-market, like seamlessly transitioning from the Pump pre-sale into like an on-chain source of price discovery on Hyperliquid with like very respectable volumes. That kind of gave us like an indication into where price was going to head like into TGE now. So a lot to unpack there. Like Matt said, I guess, does anyone have any thoughts on like the actual Pump ICO before anything else, like the actual ICO itself? I think a lot of people on CT were annoyed at a number of different things, but to me, it seems like the team is still prioritizing like a bullish launch. Like there's still not too much supply overhang. Really, the only supply overhang we're seeing is from people who participate in the ICO, and they all have a cost basis of like roughly 4 billion. So I think that's an interesting dynamic here because it seems like there were a lot of people who were unable to get into the ICO that probably wanted to at 4 billion, and now Pump is liquid trading at around 5. So I wonder how that plays out going forward. But yeah, a lot of stuff there. A lot of people like just did not like the ICO from like a, I don't know, like a moral positioning standpoint. Like, why are we letting this go to like KYC holders? Why are we upping the private allocation? Why are we not commenting on the airdrop? Why are we not announcing a buyback mechanism? Like, I think Bonk captured market share while doing a 50% like buyback and burn for the Bonk token out of Launchpad revenues. Like, why is Pump not announcing or commentating on anything of that right now? So yeah, a lot of people had issues with the actual ICO itself.
Yeah, given the timing of Bonk doing well, I am surprised, and I feel like people were probably largely disappointed that they didn't at least exceed the rumored expectations of like buyback, release some details that's like additional clarity or additional upside that people weren't pricing in as this like competitors kind of eating into your perceived moat. So that was a little disappointing, but like personal opinion, I think it's at a 2 bill circulating market cap for like one of the most successful, and you could call it extractive, but definitely successful apps of all time. Like it just feels off to me. I'm a bit surprised by the action out of the gates, like based on what people were saying about how there's probably, 9 figures plus that was not able to get filled on the ICO. I would have like expected a bit stronger action, but I don't know. Might take some time. I'm still of the opinion it should probably trade higher based on just relative valuations. I don't think it makes that much sense down here. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts, counterpoints?
Yeah, I guess if you take all of the extraction slash like CT commentary on like how this thing was run or what this team is like, I don't know. I feel like Pump should not be hanging around on the low side of the top 50 by FDV. Like, I just don't think that makes any sense from like a relative perspective. Maybe people are pricing in like bad vibes. I think that could be a component at play here. But to me, it seems like the incentive from the team should be for this token to do well, and there are a lot of levers for them to pull here to like make this token launch go well. Like announce a big buyback, tell everyone what you're going to be doing with this 1 billion, maybe make a few other acquisitions outside of like KOL scan, maybe talk a little bit more about what you're going to do with like streaming, and also like what you're going to lean into on the trading side to defend market share there. Like there's so many things they can do to get this thing to fly that I feel like they have to do it at some point, because if Pump ends up peaking at 5 billion in FTV, that is a major disappointment, I think, for a team that could have had this thing go very, very well.
What do we think about the streaming aspect and like the social play that they've clearly really want to go after? They say like watch out TikTok, watch out YouTube, watch out Twitch, and all these things. Like, Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that's what the whole ICO and that's what this war chest they're building is to go incentivize a Kai Cenat, a 24-hour streamer or someone crazy? Or is it just like, is that a miss? Are we going to look back in a year and say they should have just focused on the trading side, maybe build a Telegram bot or go and acquire an Axiom? Or what do we think about the SocialFi play here? Because we've seen large players try to do it with Red Tech, but SocialFi still hasn't worked out. I'm a believer. Nothing so far has worked out though.
Yeah, having been on a stream, UX is really bad right now. It's kind of broken. I think I can't tell if this is their real vision or just like, a marketing ploy to get people excited about Pump before the ICO. I lean towards them actually having the vision just because they've been developing the streaming for a while and obviously it got shut down. But I don't know. I think it's really a thin line if this is going to work. Like, you can definitely pay a Kai Cenat or Speed a ton of money to get on the Pump.fun, a bunch of tokens. I feel like comparable examples don't really work out. Just like try to poach people, like Joe Rogan trying to be poached by, I think, Spotify, right? Like he could only publish on Spotify, and then like he's back to everything relatively soon after that. So I think like the poaching thing really doesn't work that well. That being said, give tokens to viewers and bring for watching Kai Cenat, like that is compelling. A lot of these are children who like these streamers, so I don't know about the ethical play, and like I don't know how all that plays out. But yeah, I think I'd lean towards continuing to focus on trading, and I think the streaming could be a distraction. I think a lot can go wrong, and that is not in the best interest of Pump at this moment.
I definitely think it was like just primarily a story to justify raising $1 billion. Like if you're going to raise that much money, you have to convince people you have like this big vision of why you need that much money. And I think if they had a clear view on it, then we would all know like exactly what the plan is going into the TGE, so we'd bid it up. And then I think there was one more aspect I wanted to talk about, but I guess social just hasn't worked yet. There's not a clear reason why. Oh, and then Pump, like it's a phenomenal product, but it's not like this is a product that's been like rapidly updating and innovating every 6 months. Like there's an AMM on the back now. They've flicked streaming on and off. Like there actually isn't some history of this thing reinventing itself every couple months or every so often that kind of makes you feel confident that $1 billion can be deployed there. And then I was kind of wanted to stay on Pump, but maybe pivot slightly to more the altcoin perspective. But this feels like a TGE that would have done really well, obviously when meme coins were hot, but even more so when the capital you were chasing was crypto native capital and you had to convince kind of these large on-chain pots of money to buy something crypto native versus like when we were talking about Bitcoin, it feels a little bit more like we're pivoting our perspective from, hey, we're just grabbing on-chain users and on-chain money to like, there's actually this new wave of capital coming in from TradFi, coming in from off-chain, and they're going to think not completely, but relatively differently than how we have been thinking about markets in the past for the past like 18 months. I think that can kind of explain like a widespread run up in alts, because the new capital coming on chain isn't like for every dollar that comes on, maybe 10-20% of that has like done deep work into understanding like what they actually want to own versus just wanting exposure to crypto at a higher level. And the last time we saw that was probably the Trump win, which was another just risk on, we want digital asset exposure. And that was a widespread run up. So I feel like that like hurts Pump almost in a weird way, because those people aren't going to buy Pump. They're just going to buy whatever the easiest access or the most accessible instrument is, it feels like. But I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that.
I agree with that part of it, but I just want to quickly circle back because I think I'll take the other side of the Pump streaming. I do think that they're serious about it. I think that they tried to make it work in the past. Obviously, there was a ton of content that they should have moderated. I think they can definitely hire enough content moderators to make this work now. And I think people like fundamentally misunderstand what Pump is going for. Like, I think the two things Pump is seeing is that streaming is clearly the future of video content. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but we're seeing that grow. Just anecdotally, people like Blockworks are saying, yeah, we're considering going streaming. I mean, they've even said we're considering going to Pump for streaming. This is like the first serious consideration they've had. I think like in the age where there's a lot of slop all over the place, like Twitter, video. There's a lot of like AI content that you can't really tell if it's AI or human. Streaming is a very real, natural, in the moment type of medium. And I think it's going to succeed over the long run. And I think what Pump is also realizing, number two, is that trading is a very social game. I think the way that we trade is a little bit different from the people who are casually trading meme coins. Like I told this anecdote to you guys, I'll try to keep it quick. But I have a friend who she's not crypto native. She bought a little bit of crypto the last cycle, but is getting back into it now and is so excited about meme coins. And it's not because she's looking to make like 20,000x. Obviously that would be great, but she just really likes the volatility. Like I was talking to her and she was like, oh, this is so much fun. Like the coins are going up, they're going down, they're going all over the place. And she's like, I don't want to just get my 5% gains, whatever, that's boring. Like that's an entire different buyer set that I think that if you're native to CT, you're kind of unaware of those people that are hopping into this the first time and they're viewing it more as a game, a little bit as a sport versus, I'm hedging, I'm protecting my capital, I'm like allocating to the right things, I have portfolio management. Like this is a completely different way of trading. And I think that Pump is realizing that these people are coming in, they're probably seeing this. They're seeing that streaming is popping off and is going to be pretty much like the main, medium of video content moving forward, and that everything's getting financialized. And so I think they're looking at this and saying like, okay, we're not there yet, but if we can build towards this, this can be a really big platform, not just Web3. I think that the wrong approach for them to take would be paying Kai Cenat to come on. I hope that they don't do that. I don't think incentivizing Web2 streamers to come is the right move. I think building an audience of people who are coming into crypto or in crypto currently and kind of playing this game, I think that's the right way to go, because then you build out distribution of crypto natives that then crypto companies can come and say, hey, my audience is on here. I actually want to go stream on this so that I can tap into that audience and gain new viewers. And I think just
what is this crypto native content? Is it like, let's like trade meme coins with me and like watch us lose 90% of our portfolio?
It can be,
2 hours.
Sure, that's really entertaining. We've seen that happen, right? Like you see, like these.
We were getting wartime coverage from Gainsey. That was
right.
I sometimes tapped in to see how the war in Israel and Iran was doing.
Totally. So
that was kind of relevant.
I think you have like a range of content. Like you have some content that's just Web 2, like whatever. We're talking about war, but I'm a crypto native and I'm well known within the community. On the other side, the complete opposite spectrum, like we have exactly what you were talking about, Dylan, like people going nuts and trading these meme coins and the crazy volatility and getting, liquidated. And like people have been streaming that. Like wasn't there that girl, like I think she was Korean, who had like a ton of followers and like went viral off of getting liquidated or like making a 200x or something. I don't know, but there's a lot of content to be made around this. So I don't think it's a lack of, let's think about what content to make. I think that there's content that can hop on there and be made.
Is there like that much of an audience? Like we talk about CT and how it's like 90% bots now. Like who is coming to watch these? Is it crypto native people? Is it Kai Cenat viewers who want something a little more spicy and exciting?
I don't think it's Kai Cenat viewers. I don't think it's people that don't have any exposure or like don't really care about crypto. I think it's people that like either tangentially care about crypto or really do care about crypto. I think that we're seeing more people come into crypto and playing this meme coin game, which is a completely different area.
But are people coming in and playing the meme coin game? Like, I feel like the evidence shows that we haven't actually onboarded that many people this cycle through meme coins.
This is anecdotally, I've seen a lot of my friends get into meme coins and like they just love the volatility. I'm in some group chats where people are fucking trying to buy shit at 20K market cap, and ride that to like 100K market cap. And there's like a group of people in there just like joking around and, just like the social component of this trading game.
I think my problem is like all of this hinges on the launchpad itself, which is bleeding market share. And so, I mean, Pump Fund has done an amazing job onboarding net new users through Pump Fund, the launchpad. Like I think a lot of your friends that you're mentioning may have participated in like the Pump Fund trenches in the past. Like I've definitely participated. And right now, like people choose their launchpad based off of how much activity is happening there, like graduation rate, how high these tokens are going after they graduate. And like over the past few weeks, it's been kind of Bonk's show and Useless's show. And I think like right now, like they need to defend that first. It's also what generates like 90% of their revenues or like 80% of their revenues and feeds into their ability to create like a live streaming platform and feeds into Pump Swap's ability to generate volume as a DEX where graduations are now happening directly from the launchpad and moving over to pump swap. Like that only works if the launchpad is going strong. And to defend your, like, I think there's very little theoretical moat when it comes to the launchpad business. It's a very easy product to build. It's driven by a lot of like network effects, but those network effects can shift, and there's not much you can do as a launchpad to protect that. But right now, like Pump Fund can do a lot to protect that. Like they have this token that just TGE'd. They can announce a points program. They can announce a buyback. Like Let's Bonk is stealing market share by positioning itself as the more community / Solana friendly launchpad, where they're trying to reduce the amount of selling pressure on Sol. They're committing to 50% buyback and burn. And I think Pump Fund, probably smartly so, like retracted their original 25% buyback plan and is reconsidering what to do now.
Is that why they haven't announced any of these? So like why TGE, why ICO, when they like you've named these levers, like why haven't they pulled those levers when they realize they're losing market share and all these concerns come around and maybe they aren't getting the best performance day one that they probably want? Like why aren't they pulling those levers, you think?
So initially I think the discussion was whether they're going to do a 25% buyback and burn. And as they're losing market share to Bonk, doing a 50% buyback and burn, with basically the entirety of CT going, oh, they need to match that. They need to match that somehow. It probably was a smart move for them if they were planning to initially announce 25% to retract that statement and think about whether they want to do 50 and how they want to structure this points program, like for this airdrop, to maximize like their ability to defend against competitors taking share from their launchpad. And so I think, I don't know, I'm not involved in these like conversations with the team, obviously, but my suspicion is that, Let's Bonk shaking things up right before the ICO has probably led to them like, okay, let's take what we were initially going to say, bring it back to the drawing board, and kind of consider what we want to do here strategically to win back share. Because like Chris said, even if I do believe they care about streaming, I think that could be like a long-term goal. But in the meantime, they need to figure out how to continue to stay on top of this like launchpad war. And the best way to do that is to make a very, very solid plan to leverage this token and generate as much activity as they can out of it. And so, yeah, it was disappointing not to see like airdrop details and buyback details and like value accrual details from day one. But if they are taking it back to the drawing board and trying to consider what to do, there is a very easy world for them to announce all the things that people want to hear and have this token do well. I think that's very much on the table. Like announce a slightly delayed airdrop with a points program, get people back on the launchpad farming, get people on the DEX farming, and then claim that you're going to do like a 50% buyback and burn and allocate that $1 billion towards like productive means. And I think that's all you need to do at this point for this thing to skyrocket. So
is that window quick? Like, do they have to do that this week, or do they have some breathing room, you think, to announce these like bullish tailwinds with the price? I mean, it's only not even hour 2 of trading, but what do we think there?
I think it doesn't help that these guys don't have the best perception on CT. And so the longer you hold out and not say anything, the more people are going to basically call out the fact that this is like quote unquote extraction or whatever. And so I think time is not on their side right now because they have not bought a ton of goodwill from like the CT community, which one, I don't even know how much they care about the CT community. I think in the business that they're in, they should care about it. But obviously, like there's been a ton of investor demand from like on the private side from large allocators. Maybe they want to talk with these guys first to figure out what to do before they go and like kind of cow over to CT. But two, I think like, I think they're not Jeff from Hyperliquid who's bought like a ton of goodwill from the community. And if he doesn't say anything for 2 weeks, everyone's like, oh, he's cooking. It's kind of like the exact opposite where if the Pump Fund team stopped communicating for 2 weeks, everyone would be like, they're running away or they're doing something weird. So I do think they probably should announce soon if they want like to maximize this window that they have before people start getting antsy.
And I think that builds over time. So like, yeah, they do have a window. I completely agree. But even if I remember like a tweet that Suzu posted, he like reposted and was like, look at the comments under this. And it was a Hyperliquid post, I think before TGE or at TGE or is somewhere, I think like around the tokenomics. And dude, everyone was so mad. Like then it was insane negativity on what Hyperliquid was doing. So I think that they do have the window, but I think it's also over time, if they make the right plays, like they can change the perception, I think, of how CT thinks about the team.
In the meantime, though, I think you want this chart to do well.
Yeah,
it's probably max priority right now for the team.
I would agree.
They have $1 billion war chest at their disposal.
in general. Any last thoughts on Pump before I do a crazy spin into Hyperliquid?
I'll do 7 seconds. No evidence, no backing, all vibes. I'm pretty sure whatever top Pump puts in the next 2 weeks, like that's it for launch pads. That's the end. We'll never talk about them again.
Kenji has a track record.
What?
Kenji
Guys,
called the top
guys,
on
Kenji
AI
called the top
agents.
Product market fit we've ever had. Like,
Kenji called the top on AI agents in
that's
January.
fair.
I would take his word.
But as we go into a team that it does have a lot of CT mindshare, or like a lot of love with the community, as Sunny was saying, Hype Treasury Vehicle was announced today with Sonnet Biotherapeutics is merging with Warshosh LLC. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but new entity will apparently hold 12.6 million Hype tokens and 305 million in cash, valuing it at $888 million. So this is the first Hype Treasury Vehicle. And then also bullish news with Hyperliquid last week. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Phantom launched perps natively in-app with Hyperliquid builder codes. So what do we think about the builder codes? What do we think about the Treasury Vehicle with Hyperliquid also doing really well and kind of leading this year to date, all up 124%, and like we said at the beginning of the show, up 23% on the week. And so a lot of bullish news coming out of the Hyperliquid land.
The acquisition vehicle, whatever. Maybe Andrew has some more thoughts there. I don't really care. Like, more buyers for Hyperliquid will emerge. Like, that's been the thesis for like the hype holders for ever now, and this is just more evidence of that. The Hyperliquid Phantom team up, I think, was completely unexpected. Everyone was bullish on builder codes. No one knew that they would land a client or a partner as large and impactful as Phantom right out of the gates. And I just can't stop thinking about this team up. I can't stop being bullish on it. It just makes so much sense. Like, Phantom has one of the largest pockets of distribution out of like any crypto team slash like app slash protocol. It is a massive collaboration between these two. I've checked out the product. It is very, very nice, very, very seamless. And I mean, this just speaks to kind of the original thesis that Jeff has had for a while now, that Hyperliquid is going to end up becoming like the financial back end for a lot of these front ends and products. And Phantom is kind of the first one, one of the best ones I could think of to take this to market. And for a Solana user who is technically going to be bridging Sol through Phantom to Hyperunit, which will then facilitate the ability for them to onboard into perps, to them it will feel as if they're just in their wallet and they're taking like a leverage position on perpetuals, which many of them may have never ever touched in the past, and now have like a very, very easy mode to do so. And so I think this announcement was crazy. And yeah, Hyperliquid's fee structures are so low that it allows for a partner like Phantom to build on top of it. And still, like, the fees look very competitive even with Phantom's take when compared to like centralized exchanges and AMM dexes and everything else out there that exists. And so this, I think, was really a killer announcement, and just makes me extremely bullish for what Hyperliquid can achieve. I think this has been like the builder code thesis congealed into like almost like the ultimate form right out of the gates. Like, we'll have to see what adoption is like on Phantom, but yeah, like this is what everyone's been talking about, except I don't think anyone was ready for this type of an announcement to come this fast.
Yeah, just to step in real quick, it was like not even 1 basis point, right, for the total fees if you include Phantoms. And I think that's 90 something percent lower than what Robinhood is going to allow on their on-chain perp platform, which is, I think this is what this rivals the best, is the Robinhood, the perp platform. But I knew, Andrew, you're about to say something.
Yeah, I just think it's like very underrated, like onboarding event. I think last I checked, the new users through Phantom was around 7,000. I'm sure it's more than that by now. And if you go back through like Hyperliquid's daily new user ads, like this was over the course of like, I guess, like a few days now. But their highest ever single day ad, which was like basically a few weeks, 2 weeks after TGE, was 7,000 new users. And we did that in a totally different environment when, people aren't necessarily scrambling to buy hype post TGE. And we just did that in a few days. And it's literally like, I'm sure there's like hundreds of thousands of Phantom users who don't even know that they can trade this yet. And I feel like I was initially skeptical. I feel like we talked about this on one of the earlier pods about builder codes, and like, especially with Unit in the beginning, we're like, why is Hyperliquid like that? labs kind of outsourcing these like core functionalities, but you can see the advantages in when you partner with these distribution partners and like the scale that you can achieve as opposed to just doing everything yourself. And I feel like maybe an equivalent is it's kind of like Coinbase, like Circle paying 50% of its revenues on its reserves to Coinbase to get that distribution. And I think on net, like that was very worth it for them, just because it embedded USDC into a lot of like user behavior on average, and that might not have happened if they didn't do that. So yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's really good. We'll see how much volume's generated. I think it's like good for both parties, and we'll probably see more partnerships like that in the future. The treasury company, yeah, I totally agree with Sonny. I'm like, I don't really. There might be some like regulatory reasons or like access reasons for why they did this kind of private placement, because the 500 mil they bought, this like vehicle they bought, was basically OTC from someone else. So like they weren't, as far as I know, they weren't like buying on the open market. And I'm not sure if the 300 mil in cash that they have is intended to do that later. I'm not really sure. I didn't go through the whole filing, but on net, like I think there were some big names that were involved in that, like Galaxy, Paradigm, right? And a few others. So obviously a lot of large institutional interest, and maybe there have been some barriers for some of those players in holding spot hype. And maybe this vehicle is just like an easier method for them to get exposure on their balance sheet. But on net, I'm not super bullish on more of those things happening.
And then like very quickly, the fact that Hyperliquid has been able to facilitate price discovery for Pump over the weekend for such a large, like such a big mindshare as this isn't Jelly or a random altcoin that is like outside of the top 100 that nobody cares about. This is like price discovery for an asset that the entire crypto world is fixated on at the very moment. And for it to outperform Binance on their pre-market and generate sufficient volumes for people to even characterize it as price discovery, I think it's just kind of a testament as well to what we've been saying this whole time, and kind of these like imaginary theses that we've played out in our head, like, oh, Hyperliquid will lead price discovery, or Hyperliquid will like continue to, well, Hyperliquid will be the AWS of like finance, on-chain finance. But then seeing this actually happen in real time just kind of speaks to the execution quality of this team. And I think even right now as it stands, HyperUnit has launched spot pump almost second to second with the actual TGE, and 2 hours in, and a lot of the pump volume that I'm seeing is already happening like on Hyperliquid continuously, both on the spot and perp side now. I think
it flipped.
I think I think on the spot market, yeah, like the volumes have flipped Bybit itself. And so this is just like incredible to watch that we're actually here where I guess all the imaginary theses, all the infrastructure advantages of Hyperliquid is playing out into this very specific event where Hyperliquid is kind of flexing its muscles and going like, we can lead price discovery for Pump like in the first week, like we can just do that now, and it's happening on chain.
Yep, and I think we clearly see how big of a win this last week has been for Hyperliquid, but kind of like flipping the script. Obviously, we saw a big win with like just on-chain dexes being able to fill orders with the Pump ICO, but maybe this with the Phantom team choosing Hyperliquid, is that, how big of a loss is that for Solana and their like club landscape and ecosystem within the Solana team? And Sonny, I know, was taking a victory lap earlier last week when Sol ETH finally flipped negative for the year to date when that was one of his January hypotheses. And so like how so like let's like the Sol ETH debate, like with Robinhood choosing Arbitrum, Phantom choosing Hyperliquid, are we worried? Personally, I'm not. I'm a Solana bull, but like I would love to hear what you guys are thinking.
I think the Sol ETH thing is probably more of a temporary phenomenon, with ETH performing abnormally well over the past month as a result of like strong ETF inflows and kind of maybe Solana being a little bit overextended given where they were trading last year. And then, this kind of new quote unquote institutional Wall Street narrative that's emerging with tokenization and how that may benefit. I think Robinhood choosing like to launch and partner with Arbitrum was like a very idiosyncratic like Ethereum driver as well. And so I wouldn't necessarily call that like Sol is losing in this race just yet. I think it's a factor of the things I talked about in my hot take, which is Sol seems a bit overextended. Like Ethereum has some positive catalyst that could emerge where the asset kind of decouples from the network, and you kind of win this institutional favor as the best beta to like Bitcoin with a live ETF. I think on the Hyperliquid and Phantom front, and kind of this whole Klobs narrative. I mean, my thesis since I first started talking about this was that Solana would never be able to host like a Hyperliquid on the L1 anyway. Like, I just don't think you could ever be performant enough to do that. And so I don't really view this as a loss for Solana, because I never thought that would be a use case on Solana anyway. But it certainly is like further proof that, hey, like, if nothing can be done here, then other players are going to win this use case. And so far, like, Hyperliquid is winning this use case. And Phantom is not going to be loyal to Solana. I mean, Phantom has a bunch of other business lines. Like, they probably don't even view themselves as a Solana wallet. They view themselves as like a broader wallet with its own set of users that's building towards a bigger vision that extends beyond just Solana. And so they're going to choose the best product that they have in front of them to partner with, and that's Hyperliquid. And builder codes have just made that really, really easy too for them to do that with minimal hassle. But I'm sure if a Solana native offering comes out that's more performant than Hyperliquid, that also offers like similar like API gateways into their backend, I'm sure Phantom would have zero hesitation in like spinning the block and dropping Hyperliquid and going with another service provider. But yeah, right now these guys are just choosing the best product available for them, and that's been Hyperliquid. So I certainly think from a narrative perspective, Solana has never had more potential competitors. Whereas like the network itself, and Solana Maxis like should not jump at me on this, because I think the network itself is the best it's ever been. But from a narrative standpoint, it's probably a lot more crowded now. Like there's just a lot more potential chains and players and applications competing for mindshare than when Solana was the only game in town in 2023 and 2024. And so that's what I think has changed for like the Sol picture. But I mean, I am very, very bullish on Solana as a platform itself, wherever price goes, like in the next like 3 to 6 months. I think Solana will be fine. And I mean, Pump itself, which is driving a lot of this conversation, is an application that chose to launch on Solana and basically picked up most of its activity initially from Solana. And today is still a Solana application.
Heard those a little bit, but I think everyone heard from like the 6-man venture teams, Mertz made a good argument for it or against it, and saying their vision is for X's, not getting their take rate from a 90% to 95%. So no one from the team denying that they'll make a chain, but from people close to the team or know a lot about like creating a chain, I've heard good arguments to why not.
Does the chain get monetary premium?
100 mil.
After this price action, they might choose to launch one.
The end game of all crypto, is launch an L1, because it's the only way to maximize your token's value without increasing cash flows.
Well, that's actually a good transition, because speaking of a token or team that did launch a chain, but then decided to kill that and come over to Solana is Helium. And we'll go over to Deep End Corner right now and talk about some H&T price action. And we see year to date, H&T is down 50%, but in the last month, they're up 20%. And in the last 3 months, last week has been really a lot of their performance. I actually write the Helium Quarterly here at Messari. Everyone go check it out. It's awesome. And we got Deep and Dylan here. And the stats are all up and to the right. We have 7 carriers now for offloading. They're at about 1 million users per day, 34 terabytes of daily data transfers, and almost 350,000 Helium mobile signups. So Dylan, are people just starting to wake up to the stats going up to the right, or what's with the H&T performance? They might have read your valuation. And so what are you seeing?
That's exactly right. We dropped the Helium valuation and Catalyst for Growth June 23rd, and it's really been up only since then. And I'm sure some people will say, oh, Bitcoin's hitting 120, it's hitting all-time highs, H&T is riding that wave. I disagree. I think the market's starting to recognize that H&T is underpriced. Everyone's calling the bottom. We were first, but Blockworks also calling the bottom. EV3 is calling the bottom. It's clear to anyone who understands the DY business and the telecom business that Helium was just becoming way undervalued, and that the market just wasn't understanding what was happening or recognizing the growth. Now, that being said, the real catalyst for H&T is aligning the Helium's Nova Labs which builds Helium basically, is equity. So now Nova Labs equity with HNT, because most of the revenue coming into Helium is from Helium mobile subscription plan. So the $0, $20, $30 month plan. And basically that's 27 million annualized from the most recent data we have. That all goes to Nova Labs right now. But if you align that with HNT and say 100% of value accrues there, and you figure out some kind of dilution plan of HNT for the Nova Labs equity holders, that makes Helium significantly undervalued, in my opinion. And Amir, who is the founder of Helium, said on Twitter that he's spending 99% of his time figuring out how to align Nova Labs equity with HNT token. So I think that's a very strong signal. Data offload's also growing a ton, but in terms of unit economics, it's really just getting that Helium mobile revenue on chain aligning HNT with Nova Labs. And yeah, I think we're going to continue to see significant growth. Telefonica really hasn't started out their roll up. That's up to 2 million users that could join it. Helium, we're at 1 million right now. So Helium could triple in users. Inversion, private equity fund, first in crypto. They're going to buy MVNOs in Mexico and Latin America. Then they're going to use Helium to lower costs. That could onboard hundreds of thousands of millions of users as well. So I think we're just seeing tons of strong catalysts. People are saying, oh, the $0 plan means that they're not getting revenue, but the revenue numbers are increasing. So that means the ARPU, average revenue per user, is increasing. People are signing up for a $20 month plan. People are signing up for a $30 month plan. Helium has traction. And even the deep inside is actually working on the supply side. Just today, I think the head of the Helium Foundation showed that in New York City, which has a very high helium density coverage, they've reduced, and I could be wrong on the exact figure specification, but they've reduced reliance on T-Mobile, which is the fallback network, by 40%, which means that people are actually offloading to Helium, which drastically reduces costs for Nova Labs and thus increases profit margins. So I think a lot of people are confused by Helium. You know, they dropped the sub-DAO model in January. Everything keeps changing. They're going to do an energy deep-in sub-network last year. There's tons of confusion over what's the actual mobile plan, how does value accrual work, what's the flow like. But we're here to tell you Helium looks more and more underpriced, not financial advice. And I would keep an eye on it, because if growth continues at the last quarter's rate, things look very bright for Helium.
Yep, totally agree. And also another big catalyst coming up is in August, everyone's getting their Seeker, which I'm really excited about, the Solana Mobile version 2 and everything. It comes with 4 months free of Helium. So I'm going to be trying out the Helium network. I haven't tried it out personally, and I'm really excited. And I think there's 150,000 pre-orders, and it'll be interesting to see after that 4-month trial window how many people stick with it and really like that being used. Well, we're almost at an hour, so let's wrap up the show and we'll kick it around and see what everyone's doing on chain other than trading this Pump TGE ICO, because I'm assuming that's probably a majority of us. So we'll start with you, Kenji, since you're first top left on my screen. What are you doing on chain?
Honestly, not too much. Looking for things to buy. I kind of want to do a deep dive into robotics. I know Dylan's already done that. I took a break from the abstract ecosystem, but then I went back to see if there are any new games. So I've been playing around there a little bit. Mostly, I think like almost all my attention has been on Pump, and then thinking about Plasma coming up this week too. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I think we're getting a valuation piece, right, about Plasma. So look in the be looking in your inboxes.
I don't know if there'll be a valuation on it, but we're getting a piece
on it. So yeah, be looking forward to that in your inboxes and on Messari.io. Chris, what are we doing on chain?
Honestly, not a lot. I feel like it's been a little bit slow for me. I was doing obviously a lot of the abstract stuff. I'm still really bullish on it, but haven't had as much time as I would like to on chain. So yeah, looking for some new stuff to do. I'll probably get back into abstract at some point. One other thing that actually has been cool is I've been messing around with some of the vibe coding platforms. So making an app on dev.fun. I did some stuff on Ohara. I think that stuff is really cool. I think maybe it's not the time. The timing isn't maybe there for that to like capture mindshare right now, but I think it's a very interesting narrative that's starting to percolate a little bit. So yeah, everyone should go test out some of that stuff. It's actually pretty good quality.
Andrew, what are we doing on chain?
I'm waiting for, I probably said this last time, but waiting for the K-Hype launch tomorrow. I'm probably going to shift some of my stake type into that, and then maybe use it across some Hyper EVM DeFi protocols. Besides that, yeah, I'm long pump, long hype. That's about it. Trying to keep my life simple.
Once again, this is not financial advice, but Sonny, what are we doing on chain?
Dude, I'm risk on, man. I have no extra capital left at this point. Was initially like fairly sidelined. Have slowly throughout the year been allocating more and more back into tokens that I like, and at this point, this is I am betting on this being it for on chain season, and so yeah, a lot of trading back and forth, a lot of position starting, a lot of leverage here and there, but for the most part, that's all I've been focused on. I'm done with learning at this point. It's it's deploying time.
And Dylan, here to wrap us up, what are we doing on chain?
Not much different. I think we're looking at hype, right? Hype's done phenomenally well. Pump, this is where we're gonna really see if the DeFi monks magic will come in. And then HNT, maybe Messari's best call in recent times. But I think we're gonna have a deep in renaissance pretty soon. Got some bargains, so I'm spending a lot of time there. But yeah, I think it's really a matter of picking the few right tokens. You can't just throw your capital at anything these days. It's really about being a disciplined, serious, fundamentals-based investor who believes in the revenue meta. And I think that's gonna be the vibe for the ongoing foreseeable future.
Yeah, we didn't touch on it, but Hive Mapper and the Volkswagen deal, pretty exciting for their autonomous cars, and that'll be my State of Solana report. Another great episode. Thank you all if you're still listening. And quick shout out, Braves All-Star game for the baseball home run derby tonight. Hopefully by the time you're listening this, Matt Olson has won the home run derby. But once again, I want to remind everyone, this is not financial advice. Do your own research, which you can do your own research on Messari's website, reading all these guys' reports, some of our free reports over on Protocol Reporting. And best of luck to everyone in the trenches trading this Pump TGE and IOC. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, retweet, follow Dylan Bain on Twitter. And thank you guys. See you in a couple weeks.